Let's speak now to Brian Fonseca. He's Vice Provost for Defense and National Security Research and Director of the Institute for Public Policy at Florida International University. Brian, thank you for joining us. First of all, just to ask you on a community level, we saw images earlier of the Venezuelan community in Miami, which is very significant. It's large, collecting supplies, wanting to help. Just how has this impacted the large community in Florida?
Thanks for having me on, Sumi. I don't think there's another community in the United States that's as impacted by this than the South Florida community. This is where the largest diaspora for Venezuelans reside in the United States. It's here in South Florida, just a few minutes from where I'm sitting, and certainly they have, rushed to support Venezuela as much as they can by collecting supplies and bringing civil society organizations together to see how they can get in the fight to support any type of response, recovery, and of course, in the cleanup and the aftermath.
Brian, we were speaking to an analyst who said this will be a real test for this Venezuelan government after what we saw, of course, in January with the U.S. Seizing Nicolas Maduro and the interim president, Delcy Rodriguez, being sworn in, now working with the U.S. Just tell us about that challenge.
Yeah, I mean, certainly this is the biggest test that Delcy is going to have in her short tenure as president of Venezuela. Certainly we're looking to see how she responds to this. I mean, the first and most important issue right now is saving lives. And I think that's where the focus of the Venezuelan government needs to be. And I think that's where the United States is pledging support in the search and rescue to try to save as many lives as possible. But again, it's such a huge test for her in terms of her ability to reside over the country. And certainly it's also a test of the relationship that has been born out of the post-Maduro period between the United States and Venezuela.
In what way do you think that is a big test right now, that relationship?
I mean, certainly the United States has moved for change and reform, and it's been, getting some types of reforms or at least change from Venezuela. Not everything that it's been asking for, but it certainly has begun to open relationships and begin to reestablish diplomatic and military and economic relationships with the country. And I think this is a test on whether or not the United States and Venezuela are going to be partners going forward. And I think that's where the United States has to step in and has interest in stepping in terms of preserving the what is now a renewed relationship between the United States and Venezuela.
So the criticism from some Venezuelan opposition leaders and those here in the U.S. in the diaspora has been that the U.S. hasn't been pushing for reform politically, but rather trying to establish those economic ties and, as you said, military ties. Do you think that this earthquake could really lay that bare?
Yeah, absolutely. But I think first and foremost, what the U.S. has been trying to do since the post-Maduro is reestablish leverage on the ground by engaging economically and diplomatically in order to acquire leverage that can move the sort of the political side forward. I think this has the potential, and again, once we get past the most important issue, which is rescuing people and saving lives, the U.S. may begin to look to engage in a more long-term and maybe push and sort of expedite some of the democratic or at least political reforms it's been seeking in Venezuela.
As you said, in the immediate term, this is about saving lives. Of course, we've been hearing from doctors who say the healthcare system was already in shambles. So how big of a commitment do you think the U.S. is going to have to make? What is the responsibility of the U.S. here?
No, that's absolutely right. I mean, the public health, in Venezuela has been, in a persistent period of deterioration. Certainly the COVID period sort of, also put tremendous pressure on the public health system in Venezuela. And I think the United States and more importantly, others in the international community are going to have to support in incredibly impactful ways if they're going to have a sort of long-term, sustainable support to whatever comes out of this in terms of the public health side on the other end of it. It's going to be an enormous responsibility, but more importantly, an enormous investment that the international community is going to have to make to help Venezuela weather this incredibly disastrous, earthquakes.
Okay, Brian Fonseca, thank you so much for joining us on our program tonight.
Thank you.